Welcome to another episode of Mission Compliance, Unleashing Growth Potential for Defense Contractors. In this episode, we'll help defense contractors just like you learn to keep the government happy and avoid fines, or dare we say it, prison time. That's right. Today, we're diving into the murky waters of CMMC Self-Attestation. You think you're checking off boxes on a compliance form, but what if those boxes carry criminal consequences? Don't worry, we're here to break it all down and save your bacon. Compliance nerd style. Save your bacon. I've never heard that before. Let's unlock those secrets, expose the dangers of missteps, and figure out how to protect yourself from ending up in legal hot water. Ready? Let's do this. We're joined once again today by Mike Frieder, President of On-Call Compliance Solutions and a CMMC Professional Assessor. Thanks for joining us, Mike.
Hey, always a pleasure, Roman.
And I have to say, I am partial to any topic that revolves around saving bacon. But this week,
I'm partial to any topic that tastes like bacon.
there you go. But this week, we're talking about self-attestation, specifically how you have to be careful about doing it because it could result in, if done right, it could be a great thing for your company. But if not, if there are inaccuracies or you knowingly proceed with compliance gaps, therein lies the problem. So, you did release a video on this very topic on our YouTube channel a couple of weeks ago. So that's a good resource, a good concentrated resource for our audience. But let's break it down a little bit for our podcast audience. What exactly is CMMC self-attestation and why does it carry such serious consequences if it's not done correctly?
Yeah, so this is just a really great topic, and I'm going to cover a lot more in this podcast than I did in the video. You know, the videos are awesome. They're designed to be kind of like, cheeseburger-sized bites of information that you can really sink your teeth into. I don't know, I'm hungry. It's like right
Oh
before
man, the intro had bacon in it. You just said cheeseburger.
You got me going, man. You got me going. So, where does all this come from? So, obviously, at the recording time of the podcast, it's early February 2025. And if you go into the SPRS system, you'll now find an SPRS score, but you'll also find this new thing, which is CMMC Level 1 attestation. Just in case you're not familiar with what the word attestation means, it means that you are attesting or you are saying that such a thing exists. And the use of attestations in government is very powerful in so many ways. The way that the government proves that something is being done oftentimes is with an attestation. There's an old saying that my word is my bond, and that really holds true when it comes to the phrase attestation. They take it to mean the truth. And so what's going on here is this double threat, okay? Up until CMMC, DFARS and NIST SP 800-171 were what they call self-attestation. So if someone basically sent you over a contract, it would say that I'm attesting that I have all these things in place. That's what they would be doing. You sign an agreement, and then if for some reason you get audited or have a breach or whatever it may be, and they find out you didn't have all this stuff implemented, well, then you're in heap big trouble because they find out that you falsely claimed that you were compliant when you weren't. And that's when all these major penalties come into place and bad things happen and your contract's revoked and you're never going to do business with the government again. Kind of really, really nasty stuff, right? That's what the penalties are or can be. So with CMMC though, they have really brought this up a notch. They've said, look, here's a reality. And they're saying this without saying it. The reality is most defense contractors may not ever go through a CMMC certification by a third party. Just like most defense contractors may not have ever gone through an actual DoD DIBCAC audit. And I can tell you I've been through one and it's not very much fun. But the reality is that most people will not go through that. Most people are held under legal obligation when they sign their contract to, in fact, do what they're supposed to do and be compliant. So, as a result of that, now the government has changed with CMMC from you're going to self-attest anonymously in the supplier performance risk system or the SPRS system. They're not doing that anymore. Now what they're doing is um, they're going to be demanding that you, one, identify yourself as an affirming official. That is, you are the official person who is attesting, saying that they are compliant. You have firsthand knowledge that you are compliant, and you have worked with your organization to ensure that, yes, this is actually real. So they've named and created this thing called an affirming official. The second thing that they've done is they've taken a page out of the ITAR playbook. The ITAR playbook is essentially an instruction guide for handling information which is restricted from being put into the hands of non-US persons. Yeah, again, paraphrasing there. So what they've said with that is they said, hey, listen, if you have an ITAR violation and you exfiltrate sensitive defense secrets to a foreign person, you go to jail over that. Well, now they have decided that information security is so important that they will put you in jail if you attest to being compliant with CMMC Level 2 standards and you are self-attesting or self-certifying that you are meeting these requirements and you are not. That, Roman, is a big deal because it really um, brings in criminal liability for the first time into the IT ecosystem when it comes to defense work. This is novel. This is net new. Previously, this didn't exist. Now it's going to exist. And let me tell you, most business owners, period, don't want to go to jail. So it all of a sudden becomes something that maybe you could have done yourself before do I really want to do this alone? Probably not. I probably want, an excuse or a fallback person or some company to validate that I'm doing the right things, which by the way, that's where on-call comes in. But yeah, it sounds minor. It sounds like, hey, maybe this is good news that I might not ever have to have a third party come in and certify me. But I think there are plenty of companies who A, want that and B, will, be required to do it. Certainly more so than if it was only with DibCAC, because they can only do so many. But yeah, basically, it is you attesting under oath when you check that box that yes, I have all this in place and that I acknowledge that there are criminal penalties if I screw this up. Pretty intense.
So I'm looking at these questions and realizing this second question may be a little bit of a retread. So feel free to, expand. There's a lot of topics involved in this, a lot of things such as documentation and CUI and scoping. But how does criminal liability factor in for errors made during the self-attestation process?
Well, the reality is that I think that an auditor who comes in, let's say your company has a breach and they come in to investigate it and they find that the company isn't compliant. I think they're going to look at a lot of things. Now, this is all conjecture, right? So this is me guessing at a process that frankly will remain undocumented, and that each individual case will be looked at on its own. I think if you have hired consultants like On Call to come into your company, advise, and do what is necessary, and there's one or two little things that slip past the barriers and are not adequate in your program, realistically, you're probably going to be fine, right? Everybody makes mistakes. IT systems are very liquid things. They change frequently and require frequent updating. I think that if they walk in and they realize you got no system security plan and no real effort was ever actually put forth to be compliant, yeah, I think you got a problem. I mean, I think you got a big problem. And I think that's really when it's jail time, right? So it's folks who are intentionally leaving their systems less than secured versus what the standards require and have a identifiable pattern of blatantly just saying, no, I'm not going to do this and I'm not going to get compliant. I think for those people, there's serious trouble in the future. As a matter of fact, actually, what I like to tell people is if you look at the requirements now, doing work in the defense industry, and you don't like them, get out of the defense industry. You don't belong here. At the end of the day, national security is at risk, and I think that it couldn't be evidenced more than by the fact that you can go to jail over getting it wrong. So it really pays to hire someone who knows what they're doing, and that's what we do here at On Call. So yeah, hopefully that helps. But yeah, as far as the documentation goes, I mean, I'll tell you, as a great example, we are putting out now something close to 50 different standard operating procedures and policies with every one of our compliance deliverable packages. That number used to be substantially less than a third of that. But having now been through our own DIBCAC audits and CMMC level 2 stuff, there's only one way to get through it, and it is to truly document everything and how it's functioning and how it's working, and being able to show that to an auditor via documentation. It's huge. It's a huge part of this.
Right. And as you mentioned, what we tell everybody in our videos is you have to document everything, and you also determine the scope. You determine where CUI is stored, where it flows, you have all the stuff. So, if you're the one saying, "Hey, we're good," and you knowingly know that you're not, you know that there are gaps. Obviously, those gaps are where, like you mentioned, where on-call comes in. Where you call us, we work with you to fill in those gaps and tell you where you have gaps, in ways that auditors and assessors cannot. So there's really no excuse to have these gaps, to not understand your scope, to not have the documentation, to not be fully ready to go, because what could happen if you're found out, and you will be found out, is much, much worse, correct?
Oh yeah, I mean it's I don't know about you, but I don't want to go to jail over having bad security in my network. But again, think about the information you're being handed, right? I mean, a lot of these companies are making parts that go into core defense operation. And again, without getting really specific, I mean, let's say that you make a part for a tank or a bomb or a missile or something like that, and you're only making one part, and you're thinking to yourself, man, there's nothing sensitive about this stuff. Well, there is something sensitive, because if the enemy knows exactly how our stuff is put together, they can know how to take it down. They know where the weaknesses are. So, again, if you're being affected by these rules, boy, there is a really good reason. Really, really good reason.
Absolutely. So now that we know that the criminal liabilities and that kind of thing, what safeguards should contractors put in place so they don't misrepresent compliance?
Well, I think one thing that I not only suggest, but that we do here at On Call is we perform something called a mock assessment. We've really changed the way that we think about this whole self-attestation thing. You can't just check the box. You can't just sign the paper and be done with it. That's not cool, and can get you into a lot of trouble. So the way that we look at it is, we perform a gap analysis and solution design consultation for CMMC level 2. When you're done with that exercise, we feel confident enough, if you've got the controls in place, that we think you can probably sign off on CMMC level 1 with a self-attestation. I haven't met a company yet that hasn't had some level of gap, unless we've worked with them before, and they've had some time to remediate. And so, assuming a company has gaps, then the next phase is find out what your gaps are and go fix them cost effectively. And we can help with that too. Once you have all of your gaps closed up, and this is the tricky one because not many people are at this stage right now. Once you've got the gaps closed, then at that point, you can take a step forward and you can say, okay, so I'm ready for certification. What's my first step? Personally, my first step for certification is call On Call and talk to us about doing a mock assessment. Okay. We charge a very, very, very fair price, way lower than what you would charge to go and get CMMC certified. And it is going to be an exercise where we follow the CMMC assessment protocol, or the CAP, and we're going to walk through exactly what you're going to walk through in a real CMMC certification, but you're going to do it at a fraction of the price, and you're going to find out what controls you're going to fail on. Here's the big difference. We, as a consultant doing a mock assessment, not a real assessment, I can tell you more than this control is met or not met. I can tell you you're not meeting the control, or you're trending towards not meeting the control. This is what you have to fix. This is the documentation you need. Here you go. Here's a copy of the documentation you need. Fill this out, do this, customize it to say this. And we can literally help you in real time to evolve from not passing to passing. Now, again, we're not allowed to tell you that we can guarantee a pass. I can't guarantee you'll get CMMC certified, so I'm going to be really careful about my wording there. But what I'll tell you is, I can tell you this: we go through the assessment objectives and the controls. I can definitely help you spot where the problems are, and then help you find solutions to to fix that so that you will pass. Again, this is something that we've been going through for years and years and years. Yeah, it's basically the linchpin, I think, to being ready for a real CMMC certification, which, by the way, true CMMC certification, not unusual to see prices out there between $50 and $100,000 plus. Um, I do hope that price will come down over time. Seems like a lot of money. But knowing what I know now, they typically have a whole bunch of high-level people on that call. And so, it is a big deal. It's a really huge deal.
Absolutely. So the short answer of how can you safeguard against misrepresenting compliance? Call on call. We've seen
Yes.
it. We know what to do. We'll help you out.
Yeah,
But, you know,
as an example, if you do the CMMC level 2 mock assessment, you have documentation to back up why you believe you are compliant. And I'm sorry, I didn't really quite get to that point just yet, but I think that is the real thing that I think any company should have in place is some evidence that they have actually been through all 110 controls, 320, 40 assessment objectives, all that stuff. You want some evidence that you've really actually tested yourself because that's what you're attesting that you're testing.
documentation. That is everything. If you witness somebody killing somebody, you don't go to the police and say, "Hey, so and so killed this person," and they say, "Well, how do you know?" "Well, I just saw it." "Well, okay, let's go get the guy." No, you say, "Well, this person was arguing with you bring evidence to the cops that they should believe that you saw what you saw." So documentation is the compliance version of this. Document everything that is your evidence. So that's our three main questions on this very important topic. So we're 88 episodes in. Can you believe that?
I can't
Uh,
believe that. That's amazing.
but So we're gonna be celebrating 100 real soon here. But this question, maybe for the first time, doesn't have much to do with our actual topic of this episode. But I had to ask it. It's too fun not to ask. Because in the world of CMMC and NIST and this defense stuff, there's a lot of crazy acronyms that we have to work with. Um, What's the weirdest acronym that you've encountered in compliance work? And what did you think it stood for at first?
Man, that's a good question.
I'll let you think on that because I actually have an answer to this. Um, the one that threw me when I first showed up, coming from not a compliance background at all, and even now with the company, I don't have a compliance background. I'm the marketing guy. I host this podcast. It's what I do. I'm in a very segmented area of this little thing we got going on here. But the one that threw me when I first saw it, and you can tell the people what it stands for because even now I don't know. DIBCAC. Because when I first saw that, the only thing I could think of was Ipecac. That thick medicinal syrup they use to combat a lot of different kinds of poisonings. And so that's always what I thought about when I heard DIBCAC. And then we have a video guy that does a lot of our short form content, and he helps us, saves us a lot of time, saves me a lot of time by doing captions on those shorts. And there was a time when he would get dibcac wrong every time and I didn't blame him because he's not a compliance guy, much like myself, and he kept putting it as dipcap, and I'm like, that doesn't make much sense either, but it makes more sense than whatever this dibcac thing is. But I gave you some time to think about yours. What's your first of all, tell the people what dibcac means so that
Yeah, yeah.
they
I
don't
was
think I'm
just
making it up.
I'm not even gonna kid you. I always like to I know what it means, but I like to double check it. So I just actually did. So DIPTAC is the Defense Industrial Base. Pause. What that means is if you're a defense contractor, you are a member of the Defense Industrial Base, the people who produce things for the defense industry. Cybersecurity Assessment Center. So they are the folks who assess cybersecurity for defense contractors. That's what DIBCAC is.
That
Uh,
acronym is insane.
yeah, right. Man, it's
I would guess, based on your past videos, that your favorite is C3PAO because you always make a Star Wars joke when it comes up.
Yes, I can't. And it's like, because R2D2, if they could just find an R2D2 in compliance, it'd be perfect.
I'm surprised they haven't yet. It's an easier acronym. It's right there.
It's I think that there's, and my favorite, if we're going to talk about acronyms, is there are some people that you interact with, and they have different. Security compliance. Whoops, whoa. Concerning this special publication 8071 this is the 800. Sorry. So funny story. I happen to be studying for a certification. I think it's the Certified Information System Auditor certification, right? So I have to be studying for that. So how do I study for it? Well, I have a subscription to Speechify, and Speechify has a browser plugin. And in Speechify, I have a celebrity voice. So Snoop Dogg is my celebrity voice.
Oh my gosh.
True story. And
Why?
but not just
What?
any Snoop Dogg.
Is it because they didn't offer Alex Hormozy?
That's a good question. Alex Hormozy was not offered, but I'll tell you what's really cool. For some reason, I don't know why, but Snoop Dogg actually, if you speed up Snoop Dogg to about 1.8x, you can go really fast, but it's still clear. I don't know how Snoop does that, but kudos to him because I
Maybe
like having
because
Snoop Dogg read to me.
I feel like Snoop Dogg talks slow in general, maybe so he can understand himself. So if you speed him up, it's kind of like a normal speed. I sometimes watch the long form videos that get sent to me by our video guy at 1.8 speed, because I'm really just checking, if he's got any captions or if there's any quick fixes. And you, Mike, are already talk fast. So if I watch you at 1.8 speed, I feel like I've aged. I'm like, oh, that's a lot of information real quick. But yeah, there's a lot of crazy acronyms in this area of the world, and even coming up on 2 years at the company, I don't understand half of them still.
And it's endless, right? So like the best part is how people pronounce some of these acronyms. So like I will get into conversations with people and it's always the same guy who really thinks he knows what he's talking about, really thinks he has a good grip on this stuff, and for whatever reason they've hired us, and they will refer to CUI as CUI. So there's I call those the CUI people. I do not pronounce CUI as CUI. CUI is this weird word. It's like the word moist. It's just awkward to
Oh,
say.
oh.
Nobody
Mm.
likes the word moist, and nobody likes the word CUI. It just. And worse, I'm from the South, so cooey comes out in this like weird Southern, like I'm drooling on myself.
Ooh-wee.
Yeah, like a bird call. And then there's the SPRS system. I love it when people call it SPRS, the SPRS system, which is the Supplier Performance Risk System.
That actually sounds kind of cool though. The Spurs
Yeah,
system.
yeah. So there's the SPRS system, or SPRS system, which is really what it is. Another cool one is not related necessarily to compliance, but you kind of pass it on the way into the door to SPRS, is WAF, or the Wide Area Workflow,
I don't think I've
which,
seen that one. That one's new to me.
yeah, that one is not, it's not really so much compliance, but if you're a government contractor, WAF is where you go to get paid, which paid is not an acronym, you're just getting paid. Uh, so, yeah, the wide
uh,
world of government acronyms. As a matter of fact, actually, studying for the certification, I can tell you that I have 246 flashcards, all of which are acronyms that I have to know to be a certified information system auditor. 246 acronyms that I better
Yikes.
know.
To go on a bit of a tangent, but not really, because we like to do that here. We mentioned you make Star Wars jokes whenever you have to say C3PAO. I'm currently reading one of the many Star Wars novels that are out there, and this is really my first foray into like the novelization of Star Wars. And so obviously, when we think R2D2 and C3PO, we think about the letters and the numbers, R2-D2. But if you read it on the page, they often refer to C3PO as 3PO, spelled
Mm.
THREEPIO, one word. So I saw that the first time, and that was jarring. and they refer to they refer to R2D2 as R2 spelled ARTOO. So it's like, so I looked at both of those and I'm like, you're taking more time than it would just to put the letters there, just to put the letters and numbers there. You're taking more time to spell it out. But that's just a little tangent about undoing acronyms for the book, which is weird. Anyway,
That's amazing.
but
That is amazing. Yeah, it's
why not go on a confusing tangent when we're already talking about the confusing world of defense acronyms, right?
that's right. That's right. It's never ending. I could spend a whole day talking about acronyms.
You know, sometimes when I'm checking the work of our video guy, I have to look up the stuff and make sure that's how it's spelled, that's how it's, presented. There's videos where you talk about pieces of software like Sightline and stuff, and you go look at it's not spelled like it sounds. You got to go look it up, make sure it's right. So there's a lot of confusing stuff you got to double check in in the defense world as far as spelling is concerned. Um, but anyway, that wraps up another great episode of Mission Compliance. We hope our discussion today has provided you with valuable insights, practical strategies, and inspiration to navigate the ever evolving world of defense. We'd like to thank Mike for joining us and talking about the very important topic of making sure we went on such a tangent. I almost forgot what the topic was. Making sure that your self attestation is accurate and ready to go. Thanks, Mike.
Hey, always a pleasure, Roman, especially when we can have awesome acronyms flying around the channel.
But the conversation doesn't end here. We encourage you to continue exploring these topics and connect with us via our social media channels. Share your thoughts, ask questions, and engage with fellow listeners using the hashtag Mission Compliance Podcast. If they haven't already, what should they do, Mike?
Well, sure, they should like, subscribe, and for sure, tell a friend in the defense industry. Come on over, check out the podcast, check out our YouTube channel at On Call Compliance, and come have fun with us while we take you on the journey to becoming compliant and ready for CMMC.
Check out the podcast. They may talk for 10 minutes that has nothing to do with the topic they just spent 20 minutes talking about.
That's the best part of it all.
That you heard Mike. Please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so that you know when new episodes like this one are released. We'd also appreciate if you could take a moment to rate and review the show. Your feedback helps us to continue to bring you thought-provoking episodes and high-quality content. Join us next time as we delve further into the dynamic world of defense, security, and industry innovation. Until then, take care, stay informed, and make compliance your mission. See you next time.
Thanks, everybody.